Welcome to Strong Leaders, Strong Communities, where we celebrate West Tennessee leaders who play to their top five most instinctive talents to lead during these uncertain times. Each leader has completed the Clifton Strengths Assessment and is aligned with Strong Communities, a global movement focused on empowering people, strengthening organizations, and building strong communities of all kinds. Today, it's our great privilege to welcome Dr. Norma Gerrell. She's the superintendent of schools for the Paris Special School District in Paris, Tennessee. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. G.
I'm glad to be here, Lori. It's exciting to be with our West Tennessee leaders.
Yes, yes. Isn't it though? I have been just crazy excited about getting to talk to you, having met you or heard you speak actually almost a couple of years now, and just being so inspired by you. And so I just thank you for taking the time out of what I know is an incredibly busy schedule to spend a few minutes with us. So before we dive into a few questions, would you just share with our audience a bit about who you are and what you most love about West Tennessee?
I'll be glad to. I lived in West Tennessee as a young girl and then moved to North Mississippi. Lived right outside of Memphis. So my dad always said that Mississippi didn't need us and Tennessee wouldn't have us. So we lived right on the line in Olive Branch. But had the pleasure of going to college at Union University. So
Mm.
getting back to West Tennessee in 1984 and meeting my husband there and graduating in 1988 and teaching in Haywood County and what was Jackson City Schools then, and moving through consolidation to Jackson Madison County Schools. Being able to be back in West Tennessee, it felt like home.
Mm.
One day in 1992, 93, my husband came to have lunch with me at school, which was an odd thing. And he said, well, what would you think about moving to Paris? And I said, ooh, wee wee. And he said, no, Tennessee. And I said, oh, I love Paris, Tennessee. That was a place that we went when I was a young girl. I
Oh,
would go to the hospital to visit on visitation with my dad, who was a pastor. And I loved Henry County Medical Center because they had Barbie dolls back then that were dressed up like doctors and nurses. And I would sit in the waiting room and pretend to be a candy striper. And so I knew people in Paris, and I can remember where I was on what we call the interconnector, going toward Mineral Wells from an interview that I'd had with Paris Special School District for a teaching position. And it was like the Lord said, Norma, bloom where you're planted.
mm, mm.
And it's been almost 27 years that we've been here. And although we're parasites, our children are Parisian. So they were born here, but Carlton and I have found a great place to serve and
Mm.
to give back to our community. This is home to us, and it always will be. I've earned all of my educational degrees in West Tennessee, from bachelor's to doctorate of education. And I have served in West Tennessee as an educator for 32 years.
Mm.
So these are my people.
Oh, wow. Thank you for serving West Tennessee so beautifully and so passionately. Love that. Love learning the distinction between a parasite and a Parisian.
Absolutely.
Great
Yeah.
to know. So, you and Carlton are involved in so many different things. I'm curious about what West Tennessee initiative you're most passionate about.
Well, I've never taught in, been the principal of, a supervisor of, or worked through the State Department of Tennessee in a region or a school building or district that was not high poverty.
Mm.
So from the beginning of my educational career through today, students from poverty have been my passion. That's the child that I get up every day and go to work for. Um, there are so many in West Tennessee who have the ability. I've always said the child from poverty is not underbrained, they are undertrained.
Mm.
And they're undertrained in the ways of middle class norms and values. They're undertrained in the ways of school and the ways of the world of work. And if we teach them those norms and values and help them learn to live succinctly in that, they're going to be successful. There's not a problem with their learning ability, it's a different culture. So we take it from that cultural perspective. But what blesses me the most is to see a student who's come to us from poverty, who's gone through our school district, who has graduated from high school, gone on to TCAP, gone on to community college, gone on to four-year university, and is successful earning a living wage
Mm.
and having and raising a family right here at home. And that's what we want. We know that many of our students who are what we call maybe our best and brightest may go away and not ever come home. We hope that they will, but it's always an if. We know that our students from poverty will stay home. And it's our job as education, as workforce development, as economic community development,
Mm-hmm.
as industry partners to come together and create that environment where those children want to become the adults who lead in their community and serve, not just are being served by their community.
Mm. Oh, so beautifully stated, Norma. Thank you. Wow. Um, I'm sure that our audience may be curious about how you're wired. Your passion is palpable. But would you share your top 5 instinctive talents with
I'll,
folks?
I'll be glad to. My number one is learner. Imagine that as an educator. Number 2 is input. I am restorative. I'm an achiever, and I have a great deal of responsibility.
Oh, such a powerhouse, oh my goodness. Just the agility of and the passion to learn for the sake of learning, right? And then for all of that to stay with you, for you to basically storehouse all of that knowledge and to be to use it for problem solving, through the lens of your restorative. Um, Love the achiever and responsibility duet that you have there, to get it done. And I would imagine that you are a magnet for people who know that if they bring an issue to you, that you are not going to lay it down until it's complete, really taking ownership.
Absolutely. It will be done with excellence as my intention.
Yes, yes, I see it. I so see it. And we're grateful. As a West Tennessean, I got to tell you, I am so grateful that that is who you are and how you are in the world. Let's take a little pivot here because we're in these interesting times,
Yes.
and we would be remiss if we didn't visit what your experience has been through this. And so, as a leader, what was your initial focus when you were faced with all of this uncertainty? What did you do first?
On March the 14th, on a Saturday morning, I was working at our Rotary ham breakfast. I'm a Rotarian, and I was serving the community coffee, juice, or milk, and not thinking too much about COVID-19, or we didn't even know to call it that then. Coronavirus was all that we knew.
Yeah.
We had heard a little bit about it. I am a West Star class of 2020 student, and we had been in Nashville the week prior and had been talking to the Commissioner of Health, our great West Tennessean. We're excited about that. And our visit got cut a little bit short because you could tell there was an urgency in the State House. There was an urgency in the folks that were coming to talk with us to get folks around the table to start making some decisions. And so by the time that we got home, and then we were faced with that just chatter in the community on that Saturday morning, and one of our door prizes was actually Clorox wipes because they had all of a sudden become short supply. So that started me thinking. I talked that morning with my fellow Rotarian and fellow superintendent, Dr. Leah Watkins from Henry County, and we talked about we need to stay together on this. We'll stay in touch. About 3 o'clock that afternoon, she called and said, I'm going to have to close down next week because some things have come to light about the virus in my district. So I just wanted you to know that I was going to close. Well, my goal was to stay open as long as we possibly could until we were told to close down. So I put that word out to my school board, to my faculty and staff and leadership, to our community, so they would know that that was the plan. On Sunday morning, about 9:30, I was on stage at church as part of our praise team, and my iWatch kept buzzing. And I kind of took a peek. The Lord understood. I peeked just a little bit, and it was one of my principals. So I knew that as soon as we got off stage, I needed to give him a call, and found out that we had an employee who had a potential exposure to coronavirus, but had been to try to get testing and did not fit the criteria.
Oh, goodness.
So I had just put out at 8 o'clock that morning, we're going to keep going. And at 9:30, all the circumstances changed and I had to revamp. So we put out the word then on Sunday that we would not be going back to school on Monday, and that we would stay in touch. We would do our regular school call outs. We use a lot of social media campaigns to let parents know and teachers know exactly step by step. I wanted to be very transparent with our teachers and all of our community to let them know exactly what we knew and what we were thinking. I believe when you have nothing to communicate, you breed fear and suspicion. Even when you say, all we have are questions, and you share those questions, people know that you're having conversation.
Yes.
And when leaders have conversation, that gives people confidence. So that's what we tried to do, was to give our people confidence that we were on top of what was going on. Well, the governor on Tuesday of the next week said that we needed to close schools. So we were just a step ahead of Governor Lee in making that decision for us. That does take a little pressure off when the governor comes out, and I appreciate his leadership in that, and his leadership from the state level to be able to help us in the local area, and to bring all of those entities to the table, to listen to higher ed, to listen to K-12 education, to health departments, to healthcare. All of that has been very vital, and we've had a great response team and a great communication process in Paris and Henry County through our emergency management system here. It really has been helpful. But the part that what came next for us, of course, safety is always our number one priority. We have the most precious cargo that can ever be transported, and that's a child. Everybody's bus rider is somebody's child. So I have to think about, I don't have two grown sons, I have 1,700 children that I'm responsible for. And so safety has to be top priority. And we wanted to make sure that we were going to give them the best, safest environment, the most healthy environment, and that we were doing the very best that we could academically, but that safety had to come first. We then went into spring break. Our district. So before we began the academic push, which had to completely change from direct instruction to a instruction digitally, which we had done some of, but were not completely immersed in, I wanted our folks to get rest. It was important that our teachers took a true spring break. I asked our leadership to take that true time. We had a week that we needed to rest and recoup and be ready. Our energy had to be directed toward the crisis and managing that. And we did not need to go into that tired and haggard. So that's where we found ourselves, and then we just jumped right into our leadership team meeting virtually to make plans for our teachers to roll out both direct instruction through pencil paper packets and through virtual teaching, and we were able to do that very effectively.
You know, I just so appreciate your wisdom in taking that pause, you know, anticipating that this was likely to be a marathon and not a sprint, and such a hallmark of leadership to ensure that your team is in as great a state of well-being as is possible under conditions like that. So I'm curious, when you came back together, how did y'all determine what your next steps were going to be in navigating the crisis?
Well, we had to, one thing that I led our executive leadership team to think about is that we were no longer looking at time on task from our teachers. We generally think of the amount of seat time that we have, or we work a 6.5, 7 hour day, 7.5 hour day, whatever that is, that we had to turn our attention from time to project management almost. That teachers were going to be delivering not a time for time experience for students, but they were going to be delivering an event-based experience. So we could not expect a teacher to have that digital instruction for 6 hours a day. It had to be project-based, event-based, and we had to change our thinking as leaders so that they would understand that we were not expecting them to model what we had been doing face-to-face, but we were now in a different delivery model. And I think that helped us a lot. And it was more about managing our energy rather than managing our time. Because our teachers were dealing with the same COVID crisis that everybody else was. They couldn't find toilet paper for their family either. They couldn't go and get groceries and those kinds of things. And so many of them had children at home that they were not only teaching other people's children, their children had become digital learners, and then they were also being moms and dads.
Yeah.
So that managing of energy became something that we talked about a great deal. And what we put into place was a rhythm, a
Mm.
cadence of accountability, and a rhythm with which we met as a leadership team and set our own expectations and set our intentions for the week. And then each principal rolled that out, and we met with small groups of teachers in planning teams. So it would be the principal and 4 kindergarten teachers, the principal and 5 first grade teachers, not a whole faculty at a time on a virtual meeting. We use Microsoft Teams, and so that lent itself very well to the smaller groups. Plus, it gave them a more intimate contact with their leadership. So the principals, the assistant principals, the instructional supervisors were taking the teachers step by step
Mm.
through our expectations. And that gave a lot of confidence to our people.
Yeah.
I did a survey probably about week 3 of our digital instruction, just to ask the teacher leaders for each grade level how the virtual meetings were being received. Were they warm? Did they feel like we had connected with them?
Mm-hmm.
My vision through this entire experience is that we would be more connected on post-COVID than we were on pre-COVID. Because if we could maintain that connection with our employees, with our faculty, our staff, our extended families, our students, our community, if we could maintain that connection, then we've not lost anything. We may have lost a little academic time,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't lose our people.
Well, that was so brilliant on your part. You know, we work with a lot of CEOs, and as you're speaking, I'm thinking, wow, you know, even the delivery mechanisms for everything you just spoke about, be it Zoom, be it the parent communication, being the pencil and paper for children who did not have digital access at home. You know, one of the things that we're seeing is that organizations have a huge opportunity if they
Yes.
pause to really connect in a meaningful way, more personalism and more relaxed professionalism. And it sounds like what you did, Dr. G, was that you positioned your organization to feel safe and to feel heard and to feel like they had a stake in the game, and that their ideas were being implemented in small groups, so that you met more than just the need for a solution. So congratulations on that. That's just huge.
Thank you. I really looked to the business community for some of those ideas. I felt like a crisis is not industry specific.
That's right.
Nor is leadership. Leadership strategies can be used across any industry. I went to Pat Lencioni from the Table Group, and I joined in on some of their webinars. I reached out to Education Elements, which is a nationwide group that does personalized learning. A lot of groups, Instruction Partners is a nonprofit that has put out some great information about how to think about your students from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that their physical needs and their emotional needs had to be met first before we can meet those academic needs. And we know that in face-to-face classroom, but we've never dealt with this before, and so we could not forget that. A student who's not eaten today is not interested in doing their work packet. they're not interested in being able to get online and do some activities. They need to be fed. So
Yes.
that had to be top priority for us, was making sure that all children were well fed, well cared for, that they knew that they could tell their teacher if they had any need whatsoever. And teachers were in touch with students on a daily basis.
Yeah. Oh, mm, man, job well done. I learn from you. I learn from you every time I have a conversation with you. I'm so grateful. So grateful. So, I'm curious about how your strengths are serving you, or frustrating you in the midst of this intensity, right? Because we know that in times of intensity, we go on autopilot, right? And where with respect to our instinctive talents. So, which one of your top five is really supporting you most right now, Dr. G?
Learner has been a godsend to me.
Mm,
One of the things that you get with Learner is it's not so much the outcome of learning, it's not what you get in the end,
yeah.
it's the process of learning that just gives you such energy. And as I always say, it just yanks your chain. You know, you just get so, I could sit for hours and research and read and find another way to think about a crisis. I've
Mm,
gone back, I've listened to several things from Michael Hyatt and read some of his work when he was leading Thomas Nelson Publishing through the 2008 crisis, um, with finance. I mean,
mhm.
what do you do? All of a sudden, you know, the bottoms dropped out and you publish books and the whole world is going to a Kindle. So listening and reading and podcasts and um, webinars have just been, I've loved it, but that's my learner. And so that strength has really served me well during this time.
Oh yeah, it's like the unquenchable thirst
It is.
that
It
just
is.
that tastes so good, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, is there one that is frustrating for you or frustrating for others? We know that if they're not getting their needs met, sometimes they can cause us a little challenge.
Yes. And responsibility has been that for me. Not only for me personally, because with responsibility comes, it's all on me.
Mm,
We
mm,
take that on even if it's not expected. Um, so I can frustrate my team very
mm.
quickly with my responsibility if I don't appropriately delegate and let them take ownership of the things that they should own, and me to do what only I can do. And I learned that strategy from Andy Stanley. One of the things that he teaches in his leadership podcast is for the leader to always look for what can you do that only you can do,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
there are some things. I didn't need to be on every Teams meeting, virtual meeting with teachers, although I longed to be able to do that and spend my day seeing their sweet faces and talking about all the great ideas they had for digital instruction. My energy had to be spent getting the plan ready to roll out to the leaders so that they could take the plan that I gave them as a foundation and make it better.
Mhm.
If my idea can be the first idea in the room, but I don't want it to be the best idea in the room,
Mm.
I need to bring one so that there's a place to start. But I don't need to be, just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's the best one. So when we take that silly putty that I bring and we turn it into something that's fun or something that's exciting. We can create together. But responsibility, if not watched in me, can hinder my ability to delegate and share the load.
Yeah, yeah, such an astute observation as a leader. And I just, Dr. G, thank you. I cannot believe we're trying to do these in 30 minutes, and it's like I looked up and went, oh, it can't be. It feels like we just began this conversation, and I know that there are folks who would really, really love to hear more from you. I'm one of those. And I thank you. You're an inspiration. I am grateful that so many children get to benefit from your just incredible passion and your expertise and your commitment to serving them. Can we do this again sometime? Dr. G, can we
Oh,
do
I
this?
would love it.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes.
I'd love to tell my people. Absolutely. Yes, yes.
So, so
Two
we,
thumbs up.
oh, yes, here too. So it looks like we have an unstable connection, is what
Oh,
it's telling me. But I'm grateful that we had this opportunity together. And folks, this is Dr. Norma Gerrell. She is pretty amazing, and she's the superintendent of schools for Paris Special School District. Norma, thank you for being who and how you are. You, my friend, are a unique genius. Never forget it.
thank you, Lori.
Have a great night.
You too.
Take care.